This will cost $8 billion in tax incentives from our taxpayers. And this is all, now listen to me, this is all to fuel the climate crisis scam. Make no mistake about it, the climate crisis is a complete scam. And we the people need to start standing up against this nonsense. We are not having a climate crisis, but what we are having is a crisis of common sense. And it's time for we the people to stand up and tell the truth to the American people and the citizens of Illinois.
That's State Representative Chris Miller. He is the chair of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, a group of Illinois Republicans who traveled to Manteno yesterday in Kankakee County just before a town hall meeting about the planned Goshen electric vehicle battery plant that's going to get more than $500 million in state tax credits and estimated $7+ billion in federal tax incentives. So Governor J.B. Pritzker announced this on the September 9th, I think. It was last month. The governor was with Goshen officials and Manteno and Kankakee County officials announcing the program. But there's been concerns raised that Goshen's a Chinese company with Communist Party links. Here's State Representative Brad Halbrook sharing some of his thoughts on this from yesterday.
This is a massive deal. Rev credits like EDGE credits are done with DECO and not open to public debate.
Department of Commerce.
This is the largest incentive package in business in decades, only exceeded in current dollar value by the Soldier Field expansion. Let's compare the deal closing fund portion, $125 million, to prior year's EDGE credits. In 2021, 223 companies received almost $226 million in EDGE credits. In 2020, 196 companies received almost $189 million in EDGE credits. Governor Pritzker touts Rivian, but their deal was $50 million, 10% of the amount slated for Goshen, and they were an American company. Illinois has lost out on 18 previous battery plants, including the Rivian plant that moved to Georgia recently. The question I have is, what was offered to these American companies and rejected? And if they had been offered $500 million, would they have located here? We need those answers. Additionally, we would like to go into this deal. Why would we go into this deal without proper disclosure requirements? Why would we subsidize this project with U.S. taxpayer dollars without the proper disclosure? Chinese companies are required to make disclosures and share their sensitive information with the Chinese government. What steps have been taken to protect proprietary information and protect our interest in this deal? Again, I've got nothing against jobs. We all want jobs, but blindly going into business with a company with direct ties to China is a risk not worth taking. In closing, Governor Pritzker is doing his level best to make Illinois the Western version of the People's Republic of China. He now has went so far as to give $500 million of our tax money to the Chinese communists.
So again, Halbrook laying out some of the costs there and the concerns, and they weren't the only ones there. They even reached out to our neighbors to the north from Michigan. Former federal officials joined in their opposition to Goshen after a Goshen plant being attempted to be brought up in Michigan. Here's just one other guest that was there yesterday in Manteno.
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Hoekstra, and I'm from the state of Michigan, and I'm here to help. All right? I'm a former congressman. I used to be chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and I was a Trump ambassador to the Netherlands. But more importantly, over the last 7 months, my colleague Joe Sella and I have been fighting Goshen in Michigan. So I want to let you know, you're part of a movement. You're not out here alone. We're going to beat Goshen in Michigan. Matter of fact, in 6 weeks, we're going to recall the local officials who voted Goshen into their community. You can never underestimate the power of grassroots. They work for you, you don't work for them. From the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, I can tell you, hold up the sign, history lesson number 1. China is our enemy. They are not a competitor. They seek to destroy us and our communities. And don't ever forget it. And you have people who are doing non-disclosure agreements with the Chinese, who are doing business behind closed doors to do what? To destroy you and enhance China. You can stop it. Lesson number 2. You know, this is, a lot of it's partisan here because of the governor can do it by himself here in Illinois. In Michigan, you know, we put together, I think you're developing here, a bipartisan coalition or a non-partisan coalition to defeat this.
So clearly some ongoing concerns of this. Now, the governor has responded to some of the criticism, saying that it's short-sighted and even going as far as saying that it is xenophobic. Well, we'll hear some response to that from the Freedom Caucus members, Blaine Wilhauer fielding that response. But he also took a question from the Chicago Tribune about why they're focusing on China instead of Russia. So we'll hear the response to that question as well. So stay tuned. That's coming up here with Springfield's Morning News, reviewing a Illinois Freedom Caucus event yesterday in Manteno in Kankakee County, where Governor J.B. Pritzker's announced a $2 billion Chinese electric vehicle battery manufacturer getting more than $500,000 of Illinois tax credits. $500 million. Let me get that right. I think it's like $536 million. So more than $500 million in tax credits, but also billions of tax incentives for the federal government. So we'll hear more of those concerns coming back here, and why not? We'll open it up for your phone calls as well at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. So let's have you sound off on that. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air. Continuing on with your calls, if you'd like to sound off about should Illinois and the federal government give a Chinese communist-linked company tax credits and tax incentives, 217-629-7970. The Illinois Freedom Caucus in Manteno yesterday saying that they shouldn't. And in particular, highlighting that Gotion, the company that's lined up to get these tax credits for a $2 billion plant, is going to be getting significant amounts of tax incentives. But before we hear a few more comments from State Representative Blaine Wilhauer up in Manteno yesterday, here's a couple of headlines for you. Ford lays off 243 workers at stamping facility in Chicago Heights due to United Auto Workers strike at nearby Chicago assembly plants. This is coming from the Chicago Tribune. Layoffs began Saturday for 243 workers at the Chicago Heights stamping plant, where Ford employees are around 1,000 people. So you've got that headline when it comes to the manufacturing sector in Illinois. But then you look at the global picture, and here's another headline in the Associated Press. China's factories show signs of rebounding. China factory activity in September recorded its first expansion in 6 months. An official survey said Saturday, providing another sign that the world's second largest economy is gradually improving after its post-pandemic malaise. So China is continuing to expand, and even here in Illinois, they're continuing to try to expand with the Goshen plant. But what can be done? Obviously, you've got the Freedom Caucus that's trying to lay out what their concerns are. Blaine Wilhauer, part of the Freedom Caucus, laid out some of his concerns, but also was taking questions, one coming from the Chicago Tribune. We'll encapsulate that, but first here's Wilhauer, again, sharing his concerns with a crowd in Manteno yesterday evening.
Any questioning on this project? He was quoted recently in a Fox News article as saying that any questions on this project is basically it's unserious, it's political grandstanding, and we're here to tell the governor that our questions are serious and we're not political grandstanders. Is it unserious to ask why taxpayers in the United States and taxpayers in the state of Illinois are giving $8 billion to a Chinese company for a project that cost $2 billion. Governor, hey, guys, is that unserious? Is that an unserious, unreasonable question? The governor doesn't seem to comprehend that the reason that people here in Manteno and other places are upset it's not because of the Chinese people. It's because of the Chinese government, all right? There's a big difference. I mean, if we're xenophobic towards the Chinese people for raising questions about this project, then is he not also xenophobic for 2 years ago signing into law legislation to divest Illinois investments from companies tied to Russia? I mean, it works the same way. He can't have it both ways. And, you know, not only is Illinois divesting from Russia, which I support, but we've also divested, this state has a history of divesting from all kinds of companies. We've divested from Iran, we've divested from Sudan, we've even divested from companies that don't support the woke ideology that this governor and administration espouses. So this isn't, we're not asking them to do anything out of the ordinary. But here's the deal. This deal was done behind closed doors. And to our knowledge today, and you know, the governor refuses to answer any questions about this, there was no disclosures, and we've apparently just handed over literally $500 million in Illinois tax incentives to a company with ties to the CCP with little or no expectations on our end. Here's the deal. Goshen High-Tech's corporate bylaws, they literally require loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party, guys. It's written in there. Article 9 of its Articles of Association demands that Goshen set up a party organization and carry out party activities in accordance with the Constitution of the Communist Party of China. The company shall ensure necessary conditions for carrying out party activities. Is that the kind of corporate partner that we want, that we need in Manteno, in the state of Illinois?
So again, Freedom Caucus sharing their thoughts about this planned Goshen plant, getting $500 million in tax credits from Illinois and more than $7 billion estimated in tax incentives from the federal government. Your thoughts on this? Randall on YouTube says, give tax credits to communist entity. I vote no. No one remembers China's 50-year plan. So yeah, that's obviously some of the strategy that the Chinese Communist Party has to get global dominance and to try to downplay or diminish the United States' global dominance. So clearly you've got people highlighting that China is an adversary, even members of Congress sending letters to the U.S. Treasury saying do not give money to the Communist Party through Goshen. So some of the questions, though, that were raised, you heard Wilhauer talk about divesting from Russia, for instance. Well, a Chicago Tribune reporter was at the event yesterday and asked a question about, do you support money for Ukraine's battle against Russia? And that was fielded by State Representative Blaine Wilhauer.
Between giving money to a company that's literally pledged loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party and giving money to Ukraine. That's the issue that we're facing here. We're literally giving $8 billion in U.S. taxpayer money for a $2 billion project to a company with clear ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Did you know that the Chinese Constitution requires that any company doing business in China discloses all their information with the Chinese military intelligence? I mean, doesn't that seem like a question that the media would want answered? I mean, we can ask questions about Ukraine all day long, but we're not talking about Ukraine. We divested from Russia because of Ukraine. We've done due diligence on that in the Illinois General Assembly. What we have not done is due diligence on China, and we're literally giving them money. So I think that we need to be asking, I think the press needs to do a better job, the Chicago Tribune needs to do a better job of demanding accountability from Governor J.B. Pritzker on this project.
So the governor does have an event up in Chicago today where he is going to be talking about Banned Book Week. But clearly, this could come up as a question to get his response directly to the Illinois Freedom Caucus and others who've raised concerns about tax incentives and tax credits going to a Chinese Communist Party-linked company in Illinois. So we'll see what the governor has to say in response to that.